This is Matt Felan with the Great Lakes Bay Regional Alliance.
Hi, this is Ken Horn.
And this is Hey Bay City.
Yeah! Guys, I'm so excited to talk to you because Hey Bay City, talent attraction retention effort, Great Lakes Bay Regional Alliance, you guys have a regional attraction retention effort, and so this is a fun opportunity to talk shop. And I'm really intrigued by that. Before we get to the nitty-gritty, though, I'd love a little introduction of each one of you. Matt, who are you? What do you do?
Sure. So I'm Matt Felan, President and CEO of the Great Lakes Bay Regional Alliance. I've been here for a little over 8 years into this role. Previously, I was at McLaren running their foundation and at Special Olympics Michigan for a few years, leading their statewide fundraising efforts. And I had a career before that of about 15 to 20 years as a political fundraiser. But when we moved back here to Bay City, I needed to cleanse my soul and get out of politics to some level. So I've done it to a certain extent, but I've dug myself back in and personally married. My wife, Janelle, have 2 kids, Noah and Alexandra, who are junior and freshman at Bay City Western. And then you're just going to see me around the community. That's how I try to spend a lot of my time. So school board, announcing sports, football and basketball games, a Rotarian. You go around the community. Odds are you're going to bump into me at some point.
Yeah. Your kids start school today?
They started last week.
We're
already in full rhythm. The big piece today is my son starts dual enrollment at Delta College. So this afternoon, we're going to head over to Delta and meet a few people and get him ready to go with his online course. A big, cool step.
Yeah, I just dropped my oldest daughter off on her first day of kindergarten today. I tried not to weep.
How are you here? How are you functional? What's wrong with you? You should have mimosas and be sobbing right now.
I had my little cry in the car in the parking lot, but man, she is just, there's nothing like having kids. It's like the hardest, best thing, if that makes any sense.
Everybody stuck with me because we did have kids. We were living in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were just there. It was the 4 of us. The kids were 4 and 1, and there were a couple things that happened. We had gotten really sick on bad pizza one night, and we were physically not able to take care of the kids.
Really?
And we had to turn to good friends and say, hey, Aaron, Becky, will you help? Please come over, take these kids. And it was like, oh my God, we barely know these people. And we gave them the kids, and we just didn't have family support and structure around. And then you followed up with, there was just a lot of senseless violence, a lot of senseless murders at a larger city, and some things that kind of shook you happened.
Yeah.
And we just looked at each other and said, where are we going to raise these kids? How are they going to get to know their family? What are we going to do? And we had this moment of clarity together, and the light bulbs went over our head, and we looked at each other and went, oh my God, we're moving back to Bay City, aren't we? Yeah. We were like, there's no other place we could think of in terms of raising the kids.
Awesome. So we have your kids and food poisoning to credit for you moving back here.
Bad pizza. Bad pizza really did it, and it was the wake-up call for us.
Oh, I love it. Ken, who are you? Why are you here? What do you do?
I was born in Detroit, and so I was born a while back, and I talk about it in a book I wrote, and that I didn't want to write about. I lost a little granddaughter.
Oh, no.
She died at 2 years old. She drowned in our backyard pool.
Oh, no.
And I had a chance to tell her story and my story in that. But I ended up moving up this way, graduated from Milford High School. And back in the day when you could come out of high school, work for a GM plant, I worked at the GM truck plant in Van Slyke, and I got laid off in 1979. And I had just bought a brand new truck, too. I expected to be there for a long time. And I had a 1979 El Camino SS with the Fighting Dragons on the hood. It was cherry. and then I got my pink slip. I got laid off, and I still had a car payment. And so I needed a job. I came up and applied as a bartender at Bavarian Inn in Frankenmuth, and they hired me in as a waiter. And so that's where I met my wife. Ended up getting married in Frankenmuth, raising kids, and so they all went through Frankenmuth schools, and it I love that town. I love this region. It wouldn't go anywhere else. And we tried for a little bit. We went to work in jobs in other states, had a nice life. We went back to Detroit for a job. My wife worked at Beaumont Hospital. I worked for a little wholesale company. But when we had kids, we did the same thing Matt did. We decided we were just going to come up here, and there was no better place to raise your kids. We were going to raise our kids in a school district where they were going to finish the same district that they started. And then Veronica and I, we bought a little restaurant bar. I ran that for a bunch of years, and when I sold that, I worked for a Saginaw Community Foundation. So I got a chance to meet all the nonprofits in Saginaw County. And I learned the softer side of our community. All the people are trying to do great things, and got elected to the state house, got elected to the state senate. I chaired an energy committee for a little while. I chaired economic development, and got to know the economic development side of growing our communities and our regions and the state. And then when I left there, I came back here to the region, ran into Matt one day, and he said, why don't you come to work for the Great Lakes Bay Regional Alliance and help us grow? I was into that. And so it all worked out nice. And now I'm in the middle of writing my second book. Going back to school, I got 5 classes left to finish off my graduate program. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but at least I'll be able to say I've finished. So I'm starting this fall again at Saginaw Valley State University. And then we're in the middle of this very huge Operation 40K, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later, growing the region by 40,000 people. And then we have to tell the story, and this is where Matt will lead us on telling the story of the region and marketing this region. And it all works together. And so all the dominoes are lined up for us to come together and make this happen.
Awesome. Yeah, so maybe let's plant the seeds a little bit of kind of the origin of 40K, Operation 40K. Matt, what was going on pre-Ken coming on board that really showed the alliance that, hey, attraction, retention is the thing that we have to focus on, and we have to pivot our work a little bit to really address this issue? What was happening that eventually led to Ken coming on board?
So I think like every other organization, you go through COVID and you're trying to figure out what's next, what's our plan, what's the best use of our time and our resources, our talent, what does the region need? And I think we really took a major step back and said, how can we make sure that what we're doing is not duplicative? Because there's a lot of phenomenal people across the region in every county that are doing amazing work. And I don't care in what sector, I can guarantee you in this region, the work's being done. So if it's economic development, if it's work that our chambers do, if it's the storytelling of our destination marketing organizations like our CVBs, universities, everybody's doing something. But we took let's say close to a year as an organization and took a giant step back. And so let's listen to the region. Let's listen to the community. What do they want? What's the leadership want? Where do they think that we can best serve everybody? And man, I'm not lying. We did thousands of interviews. We met with people in person, a one-on-one, in small groups. I thought it was never ending. It was strategic planning on steroids, which if there's one thing that doesn't need steroids, it's strategic planning. It was unbelievable. But what was great when it was done is I think we found some common themes that everybody cared about. Number one was we have to grow. This region has to grow. If we do not grow as a region, we will suffer mightily. We will never be able to keep up. And that was one common theme from everybody. There was no one that we talked to that said, hey, if we focused on growing the region and increasing population, would that bother you? Mm-hmm. We didn't get any no's on that. Mm-hmm. Everybody was pretty much aligned. Yes, help the region grow. And then I think the second piece to it is we're just in a world right now that's changed again because of COVID. Take it for how you will in terms of what the workforce looks like, in terms of what they're willing to do, how they're willing to work, what they're going to do. So talent is the discussion. Talent is the war that we have to win versus other areas and communities across the country. And they're just tied together. You can't do one without the other. If we're going to grow because we have talent and because companies want to come here and because companies want to stay here and because people want to build and develop and make and be entrepreneurs. And so if we can be the ultimate talent hub, we can grow our population. And kind of those were the two things. So the new mission is to have a prosperous and growing Great Lakes Bay region. It's really simple. But if you look at it, growth will bring about prosperity in this region, and we have to focus on it. We have to do something different. And this guy right here, he didn't even know it. I didn't even know it. I walked in one day to listen to a lunch. I'm at SVSU. The manufacturers had a luncheon, and Ken Horn was a keynote. And he got up and he started talking about how, and Ken, you'll have to help me, but I think your number was 1 million people in the state of Michigan, right?
Project 1MP, baby.
Project 1MP. And he was telling the story. And I don't even lie, he got done. And I was looking for him and I couldn't find him. And I got outside and I saw him. And I ran down the sidewalk to talk to him. And I said, Ken, that's the best I've ever heard you. I said, clearly your political career is coming to an end because you are on fire right now. Because if you would have taken that message statewide, you get elected any day. I said, you were excellent. I said, I think your thought process is spot on of what the state needs. I just want to congratulate you on a great speech. And I got in the car and I made a couple calls and said, you know what, we would be idiots if we didn't hire Ken Horn to do this in our region at our level. Great for the state of Michigan, but if Ken Horn's growing Oakland County, no offense, Oakland County doesn't need help growing. They're going to be okay. Yeah. But needs help growing the Great Lakes Bay region. Bay County, Midland County, Isabella County, Saginaw County. This is where we desperately need help growing. And with this vision, his years of experience, unique experience, diverse experience, someone who thinks differently than me, which I thought was important because I can tell a certain story and I have certain skills and a certain style. I don't think one style and one set of skills and one set of relationships is enough to help grow this region. I was like, wow, we can bring someone of that level who, listen, he was talking about 1979 and losing a job at GM, and I was getting dropped off at kindergarten that year. He just, I say it respectfully, he has experience
Ken shaking his
that
head.
we need. Yeah, no, I didn't. Did I age him? That was not the point. The point is,
These young whippersnappers.
Ken brings different experience that's needed, a different vision, different thoughts, and really the way I looked at it, when you take the two of us together working on something like this with the team we have in place, we're going to be able to do incredible things. But he was an incredibly important missing cog to us taking those next steps.
Yeah, I'm going to resist the urge to jump in and start talking shop right away, because I think what's so interesting about this is that, Ken, you were already thinking this way, and then the alliance is doing community engagement and figuring out what do people want, and they're thinking growth, and you were thinking growth as well, but at the state level. And so like the synergy of this and the timing of it, I think is just so great. It wasn't like Matt came to you, Ken, one day and said, hey, we talked to a bunch of people and the region wants to grow, and you're like, oh, okay, let's try to figure. The ball was already rolling. So Ken, tell me about 1MP at the state level, and then you coming on board at the region.
I wrote an op-ed column, an opinion column for Detroit Crane's Business, and it had to do with growing Michigan's population. And this is where I coined the term Project 1MP the very first time. And it was really out of necessity. I was talking about economic development, and still I was focused on the economic development tools. And if you ever sat in the last year, if you sat in my economic development committee, I was actually apologizing to my committee members and to the people of the state of Michigan, because I spent so much time building the tools, I forgot to tell people why. And so we were developing tools like Good Jobs for Michigan that would bring in big players that could bring in 250 jobs or more, 1,000 jobs, 3,000 jobs. And what do we do to incentivize them? Brownfield Transformational Act, and I built coalition around the state, from the UP down to Monroe and across the state. And we could build downtown communities. It is built on brownfield credits that right now the Hudson Tower, if anybody goes to Detroit and where the old Hudson site is, there's a big skyscraper being built on this piece of legislation. The Vicksburg paper mill is being transformed into a music center right now on this piece of legislation. So these tools are fine and dandy, but why were we developing them? And so I wasn't really selling it. And so we were taking a look at how we could talk to our colleagues about economic development in a way that they'd listen. And so when I started talking about how would you grow your community, how would you grow the population of the state of Michigan? because talent. I helped build the Going Pro Talent Fund, which used to be the Skilled Trades Talent Fund. $55 million a year we spend on training people into new talents and growing their talents. $55 million on Reconnect my last year there, getting people that are 25 years old or older that have no post-secondary after high school, getting them back into college or into a skilled trade. $110 million in 1 year on training people because we were that short of talent. But that doesn't grow your talent pool. Mm-hmm. And if you have a stagnant population, even if you're not losing, I was writing in my column, you have this very finite number of people that you could draw from in your talent pool. And then you have other states that are sucking us dry because they're growing. Mm-hmm. And so our talent pool keeps getting shorter. And when you lose population, here's the other thing that happens. And this is part of the conversation that we're having now that Matt and I are working together, and we're talking to our IFL, our Institute for Leaders, and all around at Rotary clubs. When you lose population, you're losing young talent. They're taking their talents with them. If you monetize degrees and skilled trades into dollars, we're losing wealth. Mm-hmm. And so we have an aging population because we're losing young people. We're losing wealth. And so we're unveiling poverty. And with poverty, and now here we're talking shop already. With poverty, there's a direct correlation to obesity and issues of morbidity rates, right? And so all of a sudden you start seeing a less healthy, aging population. And that is not good for any community. You have to reverse that trend, and you have to start going after young people. This Generation Z and this I generation, this iPhone, iPad generation, this tablet generation that's coming up now. We have to attract them. And so how do we do that? That's our big concern. And so, I had people standing up right next to me on this floor of the Senate, making big speeches. We can't spend money on this economic development stuff. We need to spend money on government services. This is conservative Republicans. We need to start fixing our roads. You got to start filling these potholes. And afterwards, I'm talking to I said, Senator, I said, my colleague, I said, I can tell you this. I own a restaurant. Nobody's flocking to my restaurant because I had smooth parking lots. They didn't come because I had clean bathrooms. Mm-hmm. They came because I had all of these other amenities. I treated them well. They had all these other things. I had good food. I had good service, all of these other things. Our communities are no different. Mm-hmm. So what are we doing to attract? We still have to do with all the other stuff, but what are we doing to attract? And that is the essence of how that all got started.
Yeah, something you and I, Ken, before we started this interview, we were talking about is this idea of people being the fuel for anything that you want to accomplish within the context of a community. If you want to improve education, it comes down to people. Infrastructure, it comes down to people. If you want more local businesses, it comes down to people. A higher quality life, it comes down to people. And so I love this idea of looking at growth as not just a number, but the increase of potential. More things can happen when you have more people happy about where they're living, wanting to be there, wanting to be engaged, wanting to participate, wanting to create something cool. And if we're losing people, we've essentially got this leaky boat, and it doesn't matter how hard you want to paddle, because eventually that boat's going to sink. And so this idea of catching that hole and saying, how can we build a bigger boat? We need more people built in the bigger boat. And now we've got a bigger boat. How do we go faster? We get more people, more skilled to paddle that boat. Now we're moving this bigger boat faster, and now we're cooking with grease. Now things can happen. And I love this idea of really focusing on people and what attracts them. Yes, nice roads are good, but is there something else that we can invest in that is more attractive in that capacity? And I just want to clarify too, something else, Ken, that you said before we started recording was, it's not, when we talk about this attraction retention issue, it's not just one thing. It's a lot of things, and it's a lot of things that you have to do simultaneously. And so when we talk about, which we will in a second, about storytelling and marketing the region, it's not just that. That is a critical component, because if people don't know about us and our value and the quality of life, there's no hope. We don't exist to them. We might as well not exist on this planet if we don't communicate our value. That's one piece of the puzzle, though. There's so many other things that have to be addressed and at the same time, and that's why this challenge is a challenge.
Yeah, we can talk about the three-legged stool, but this puts us at a point where Matt has to jump in, because the Operation 40K does nothing if nobody knows about it. Mm-hmm. And so this is where Matt is putting together, or has put together, this storytelling task force that I think you're part of at the next trip that we go through.
Yeah, Matt.
So you know what, Phil? Before we do, I just want to talk about at least what I see right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please.
Because I think that's so important. And it's a Hey Bay City podcast. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more Bay City centric here on this. And it's easy for me to do because I grew up here, right? So when I grew up here, I was born in 1974, graduated from Bay City All Saints in 1993. When I grew up here through the 80s into the early 90s, there was a shift going where everyone had left. Mm-hmm. Downtowns were abandoned.
Yep.
Downtown Bay City was a shell. There was not a lot in downtown Bay City. Wilder Road had exploded. It was the era of malls. Everybody wanted suburban life. You wanted to live on a cul-de-sac. Mm-hmm. Things had changed. There was a shift in how things had gone. I left here in 1993, moved back in, let's say, 2011. And the change in that time frame, I can't even describe to you how dramatic it was. So if you grew up in downtown Bay City, or grew up in Bay City and you hadn't been to downtown Bay City in a while, it was shocking. Mm. And there were several things that happened. So first of all, the Rowleys had a vision that no one else had, that people questioned of, hey, why don't we build a place for people to live downtown? And everyone said, nobody lives downtown. Mm. This isn't 1907. You can't do that. It's going to fail. And it was genius. Mm-hmm. It was genius. It was ahead of everybody's time. In talking just a little bit in the other communities in Saginaw, Dick Garber and the Shaheens decided, you know what, if we don't start investing and buying and repurposing these properties in this entire area, we will never set the stage for the growth that we need. Mm. In Midland, they had one-ways, and they slowly bought up all the land and the houses between the one-ways and cleaned it up and set in place the ability to double the size of its downtowns. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to first say that the shift from 93 to 11, at least through my eyes, was dramatic. Downtown was rebuilt. There was investment. There were people living downtown. People wanted to go back downtown. The cul-de-sac suddenly wasn't important. But then here in Bay City, we decide we're going to have uptown as well. Mm. And there was another catalyst. Mm. Bay City oftentimes, I don't know why this is, but they don't think they should have as nice things as they can have. Mm. And the Y was another great story. People are like, we don't need a Y that big. We don't need a building that big. We don't need to spend $20 million. It's too much. Why are we doing this? I think it's proven we do need a Y that big, and we can utilize every last room and centimeter, and we can have 8,000 and 9,000 members in world-class childcare. And that became the first piece that brought upon Uptown, which when you go through there today, it's astounding to see the restaurants, the people living, where everything is. And the reason that I bring this up is this. We've done some placemaking, and our downtowns are great, and there has been another great shift in the last 20 years back to the downtowns. And our industrial midtowns in Bay City, Midland, Saginaw, Mount Pleasant, they're a shining beacon of what downtowns have become. But one thing that I'm definitely learning is, and that we need to listen to if we're going to grow the region and grow this community, there's a lot more to our community than a downtown. Mm-hmm. And the downtown's a place where some people live. The downtown's a place where everyone goes. But the larger community, the neighborhoods, where folks, I'm a Frank Capra kind of guy. It's a Wonderful Life. Mm-hmm. There's this great scene where the main character, George, is really upset, and he's talking to Mr. Potter, and Mr. Potter talks with the people as the rabble, and he says, that rabble, those are the people that do the living and the dying and the working in this community. They're really the engine behind it. And so I've had this epiphany of late of we have to be careful that we're just not talking to the same crowd, that we're just not talking to the people that love their downtown and that it's all about downtown. I'm talking about the people that do the living and the working and the dying in this community that live everywhere. And until we start talking to that group and getting pride from that group and getting an understanding of the importance of community from that group, and we get outside that small circle of the events that we all see each other at all the time, and we all think we're so important. I'm going to tell you right now, the people that live in our communities that don't go to the same chicken dinners and the same breakfasts and we don't see the same things, that's the heart and soul of this community. And we have got to start talking to that group. We've got to start including that group. We've got to start getting out so that they can hear us and that we're not just talking to the same people that are singing from the same hymnal over and over again. And that is actually the 9/10 of the community that if we can learn to speak to listen to engage, to help rebuild neighborhoods, communities, etc., it sets the stage. But it's been one massive learning piece. It's taken me a couple years to fully wrap my brain around, is that the same people that seem to have, and I'll apologize to all three of us, it's great that we have the microphone, but we often have the microphone. And I think there's a heck of a lot more people that need that microphone, and we need to hear what they're trying to tell us and where they need help and how they can be engaged. Your podcast, I think, has done a very good job bringing a lot of folks like that into this. We're scratching the surface, brother. We have so much more that we need to learn from the people that really do comprise our community.
Yeah, it's this challenge that we have set before us of attracting and retaining people to Bay County and then the region, of course. It's an opportunity for cohesion building and collaboration and really confronting us with, do we want to move forward as a broad community? Because we have to. If we want to be successful, we have to tap into all sectors of all of our communities and really build the trust and build the feeling between all of us that accomplishing this goal stands to benefit everyone. It's not a specific class of people. It's not a specific, if you're an employer, you're the only people that can benefit. No, this stands to benefit all of us in so many ways. And in order to do that, you have to open up those channels of communication. Say, what do you think? What do you like? What don't you like? What would you do if you were leading this? Or what is, and we all have to come together, engage each other, communicate with each other, and so that we can address this challenge, not just over the next 3 months or 6 months or 1 year, but that this is a continuous thought, intentional action for the entirety of our entire community here in Bay County and the region, that this has to become part of the fabric of who we are, and thinking what attracts people here, what keeps them here, and then how can we keep doing that forever, and then making it better and making it better. And that's one of the really interesting things about doing this work here in Bay County is I can feel it already evolving. We've been public since January of this year, but just refining it over time, because you hear things from somebody like, oh yeah, that is a fantastic idea, we should do that. And now that gets added to the quiver, or let's change that a little bit, let's change this a little bit. And then you build this machine gradually over time through the input of lots of different people. And then you have something that you can really be proud of. So my question for Operation 40K is this goal of attracting 40,000 people to the region by 2040. What's the plan there? How do we go about doing that?
There's and you've seen it, the three-legged stool. Mm-hmm. And it comes in, and I'm going to describe them one at a time.
Yes,
but again, say that it all has to happen at the same time. Innovative jobs, innovative businesses have to grow here. And when I first started my initial thoughts on this in Project 1MP, I was working with the Michigan Manufacturers Association. That's where I got to really know the manufacturers and where Matt saw me speak. If you didn't focus on one industry on a statewide level, you would just lose your mind. There's just too much going on. You had to be able to focus. Sure. And what are the innovations in industry that you could focus on? And what are the manufacturing innovations? And you have 3D technologies, additive manufacturing. There's even biomanufacturing. There's all kinds of things that could go on. We could be we could actually be heading into the space industry. We could talk about that if you wanted to, but if we made baby aspirin or pharmaceuticals, silicon, polycrystalline silicon, if we made microchips, I don't care. We need to make something, and we need to be the best at it. But when I came and scaled this down to 40,000 for the region, that's 10% of the region. I'm looking at it now. I can focus on all of our industries. It doesn't just have to be manufacturing. So, in fact, in 3 of our 4 counties that we focus on, Saginaw Bay, Midland, and Isabella, out of 3 out of those 4 counties, healthcare is our number 1 employer, single site employer. And so what are the innovations in healthcare that we can grow? And so we've got a growing medical school. We've got a Saginaw Valley, Delta, CM, all with either allied health, teaching nurses or doctors, or we're doing research, medical research at CMU. All of these things could grow. In the agriculture business, right here in Bay City, you have Michigan Sugar. This is advanced manufacturing, actually. When you think about the technologies that they're using, we have Corteva in Midland. We have Star of the West in Frankenmuth. And if you ever sitting at happy hour and you dip your hands in a bowl of Pepperidge Farm goldfish, you're eating product from your own area. You're helping your own economy. Or cereal in the morning. It's coming from Star of the West, the flour. But where are the technologies? And even in hospitality, a lot of people don't know, but in Saginaw at the Career Complex, you have the culinary arts students that have won national awards 3 years in a row. Yep. And now they have a contract with a Bavarian Inn, one of the largest restaurants in the country, and these kids get firsthand feel of what it's like to be in the restaurant business as they win these awards. These are innovations. How do we attract the world to look at them? Innovative businesses, and then you have to tie them into your education system. If you tie them in through corporate services contracts or through curriculum at Delta and Saginaw Valley, at CMU, at Northwood, at Mid-Michigan College, wherever, Davenport, all of our college universities, and you tie them in tightly, you have to teach the innovations. And when you create these curriculums at these higher levels and you do these dual enrollments, you've got to be able to push those credits down, and those high school kids and those middle school kids who are just doing career exploration have to look up and say, that's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And then early childhood development, the Alliance, through their strategic development, has a cradle to career look at education. Second leg of the stool. Third leg of the stool is building up your downtowns, building up your communities, making this a placemaking. Matt will talk about welcoming people, making you feel like you belong here. Mm-hmm. How do we do that part of it? Because once we attract, we have to retain. And once you retain the people you attract, you actually retain the people you already have. And that's the beautiful part. And all of this has a focus on the people that are inside of all of this. And it all has to happen at one time. There's no first step. It's just that everybody has to just keep doing what they're doing. Just do it really. We just all have to know what each other are doing. And if I can help you, if I come to you and I ask you, in your business, in your community, in your school, how are you going to grow by 10%? You have the answer. I don't. But you say, okay, I want to, but I have this problem. That's the problem we all need to solve together.
And I want to jump in, Ken, just to give. Ken this is why he's phenomenal at his job. He will give you the pure meat. But if I go back up to that 50,000 foot view, so number one, we have to retain people. Retention.
He's going to give you the why of why we need a why.
Yeah, let's go to that big picture. We keep losing population. We need to slow that down. So we have to retain people. So that's number one. Mm-hmm. Then number two is you have to bring people in. So what does that mean? And this is where it's going to come from a whole lot of levels. So Ken is right on number one. We have to have great jobs. That's going to help both retention and attraction, but we have to do that. Number two, if you really think about this, we as a community are going to have to start thinking a little bit different about immigration, because communities that are growing across the country are not growing because people have suddenly decided to have 10 and 12 kids per family again. They're growing because they're bringing people in from all over the place. Are we as a community prepared to bring in legal immigrants into this community that look different, that sound different? When they get here, are those folks going to feel like they belong here? Are they going to feel welcomed? Because if we're going to grow, aside from bringing Nick Cannon here, this is the type of thing that we have to do. We have got to bring new Americans in, and they are helping other communities and states absolutely thrive with population numbers. And these population numbers turn to increased access to government funding, increased representation in Congress, increased roles. There's a direct correlation to the type of things that you're doing, but we are going to have to become a community that's much more comfortable with new Americans if we're truly going to grow. And I don't want people to be scared. We're talking legal immigration. How do we bring people in from across the world who, when they want their dream for their families, it's in Bay City, Michigan, or Saginaw, Midland, Mount Pleasant. We have to wrap our head around the fact that we can be that destination. The next thing I would say, and it ties all together, is that education piece. This community needs to do a better job of thinking of itself as a college town or as a college community. Because we talk about how do we bring people here from the outside? We actually do it every year. We do it very successfully. If you look at higher education in this region, we are just as competitive as Metro Detroit, Ann Arbor, East Lansing, Kalamazoo. Our region is home to between 50 and 60,000 college students. We're home to CMU, SVSU, Northwood, Davenport, Alma, MSU Supply Chain, the Axia Institute, Delta College, Mid-Michigan College, the Tribal College. And the numbers I'm giving you are when enrollments are the most challenged they have been. They're at their lowest numbers that we have seen in decades. And they're bringing in kids from all across the Midwest, the country, and the world. If you're at CMU and SVSU, these kids are coming from areas, whether it be China, Bangladesh, India, Saudi Arabia. They're coming from all across the world to come to school here. We're showing that people want to come here. We're showing that they're here. Here's what we got to do. Why do those people now want to stay here? So if you're a young kid that comes from Detroit or Chicago, Grand Rapids, you go to school at CMU or SVSU, you get done. Do we ever talk to those kids about the fact that they can stay here? Do we have the jobs that interest them to stay here? Do they understand that the cost of living and the life they can have as a 20-something here is just such a massive competitive advantage versus some of the major metropolitan areas? Every year, we're bringing 50 to 60,000 kids, and I think that number over the course of the next decade moves to 60 to 80,000 kids. Great. We have the talent here. We have the minds of tomorrow here. We have the best our state has to offer here. Now we have to keep them here. But I think people keep wondering, okay, where are the people going to come from? It seems so complex that you suddenly have jobs and people show up. Yeah, that's not always the case. You have to think about how we actually do this. And it's understanding that a youth movement through higher education, that new Americans through legal immigration are two of the key pathways and two of the key tools in which we actually have to look at and go, how do we do a better job? What do we have to do to really harness that? But in the numbers of Operation 40K, we can probably get half the way there just by capitalizing on the higher education institutions that are in place. Because here's the best part. If those institutions grow to those levels, guess what else they need? They need more staff, more professors, more construction, more housing, more everything. And CMU was heading that way before COVID. The boom of apartments and construction was extraordinary, and then the world changed on us, right? So I just want people to know, these aren't unattainable things that we don't have an idea how to do it or that we're just hoping that we can get there. No, there are real tangible things that we can do. And then, like I said, I gave you much more the why and a little bit of the how. Ken scratching the surface of the type of things that we can do to create those jobs that bring people here. And then there are cases, and I'm hoping this happens. They did it in Kentucky. they're rating the state of Michigan with the Blue Oval Project on electrification of vehicles. And they built it in the middle of nowhere where there was no people. And it's clearly, you can hear it in the outfield. If you build it, they will come. It is what they're doing in Kentucky with this, that people are going to come to work there because they're great jobs. They're cutting edge technology jobs. They're jobs that excite people. And people are going to move there. And guess where they're moving from? Michigan. Yeah. And they're going to go down there and do those jobs. So at some point, we're also going to have some of those successes where we either build new industry or capitalize on the industries that are here to create new industries that drive people here because they want those jobs.
And that's why I'm weighting this Operation 40K slightly different since coming on board with the Alliance. I am now looking at 20% student population growth for the reasons Matt just laid out. First of all, a high school student filling out an application for college, whether they're here or whether they're somewhere else looking to come here, they're mobile. They're looking to move, or they're looking to go to college. Even if they're here at Delta and they're living at home, they are mobile. And when they get their degree, they get their skill, they're looking to go somewhere. And so we're either going to have to track them from somewhere or we have to fight to keep them. And so 20% student population growth. And the question, and this was posed to me, I drove down to Ann Arbor right after their storm and met with Luke Glazier from Michigan Future. And his big push, and he's going to make this presentation when I'm up in Traverse City on Thursday for the Governor's Population Council, that we have to actually survey our students. What do you want?
Yep.
And we could partner with Hey Bay City and do that here and say, what do our young people want? What do you want before you come? What do you want to stay? What is it that you're looking for? And then we gray hairs, a long ways away from that yet.
No, I'm right there with you, my friend. They're plenty gray.
You got a little silver on the side.
More than a little, my friends.
But we've got but we're not going to be around forever. This world is going to belong to them. What do they want this to look like? And Bay City's doing a magnificent job. I love coming up here, the energy, the excitement up here. And there was such a vision for this. And this uptown was actually built with a mega credit. The state of Michigan helped, and so did East End. And so we're looking for that same kind of help in Saginaw now, some kind of a credit, whether it's the Brownfield Transformational or some other kind of help for a major project like this on the river. And then when that happens, Katie bar the doors. There ain't nothing stopping this region from growing.
Yeah.
And Ken, can we feed off something? Because I think it's very important what he said, which is listening to the kids. And I mentioned we all wear different hats. And so I threw on the school board hat because when you have the political bug, you always have it to a certain extent, right? But you want to be involved and be engaged. And I thought to myself, what's the best use of my time? And so I decided to jump on the school board. And it offers some opportunities. I talk to our students constantly. And there's several programs through the course of the year. So number one, the work-based learning program. And I know you've had Beth Jahosky in here. I know you've talked to Ed Clemens. What they do on work-based learning is important. But the reason I want to bring this up is because I think people often say, what can I do to help? What's my role? And I guess I would say it's embrace these kids and bring them into your place of employment. Bring them with you. If it's a skilled trades job and you work for an electrical company, take them with you and show them that skill, show them that job, show them construction, show them healthcare. Show them the things that are happening at Dow, DuPont, Corteva, these cutting edge companies next to your HSC. We have such an opportunity to show our kids where the jobs are here in this region, to capture their imagination, to get them to understand. Too often kids are going through blind. They don't know, this sounds good. I read about this. I saw this online. I'm going to study that. They don't know. They have to see it. Yep. And so for people that are watching the Hey Bay City podcast, I just implore you, get up off the bench, do your part, start engaging with your school, bring these students in, teach them what you're doing, try to interest them. My Rotary Club one year, we host a program called Vocational Days every year where we bring high school juniors in and they do a job shadow for half a day. And there was a year, I'm not even lying, we had one student who was on a hospital rig and they went on a run and they literally had a patient pass away on the way to the hospital. We had another student that was in the operating room of OB while a baby was born. And so we got done that year as a club and said we literally had 2 students involved in healthcare, and one saw one person in our community leave and one saw another enter. And those experiences are so important, because if we can capture the hearts and the minds and the passion of these students here in the region, we can keep them here. But if we don't talk to them, if we avoid them, if we try to tell them like we know better and here's what you got to do, if we don't include and listen to them and really get them engaged at the table, they will leave and they won't come back. And that's on us, because there are a lot of amazing things going on in this community that they should want to stay here or have the opportunity. We, our generation, I don't care if you're 30 and above, 25 and above, if you're professionally employed and in the workforce and working and leading in this community, you have a responsibility to work with these kids, to bring them in and to show them why this community is so great and why there's a spot for these kids in the future.
Yeah, let me throw in a disclaimer. Hey, Bay City, when we say kids, honestly, my kid is a grown adult with an electrical engineering degree. Matt's kids are in high school being dual enrolled. These are smart people. They will rule the world. And we know that they have talent. We know they have degrees. That's why we want them. And so how do we attract them? Do we understand them? That's my generation. And when I talk to my own children, Kevin and Andrea, who left to go to Grand Rapids because they had restaurants that she could be a sous chef in, and transportation that she didn't have to own a car. Then went to Portland, Oregon, and then it ended up in the middle of that mess, right, ground zero in the middle of all that riot stuff, and scared her dad to death. And how do we keep them here? What do we have to offer in this region? And Bay City, actually, in our region, is very similar to what Grand Rapids has looked like as it started making its progress. Bay City is at a point right now in its hierarchy of need where it's starting to look at public art and green spaces and in walkable downtowns, much like Grand Rapids is doing. And so, just not on such a large scale, but we have something to offer.
I love that you say that, because that's something that I tell this community a lot when I speak, is that this is the hard part, the starting of it, the getting the train moving off the tracks. There a lot of effort, a lot of collaboration, a lot of elbow grease has to go into this beginning part, because you're essentially creating the emotional infrastructure, the economic infrastructure, the career infrastructure for these communities, and that takes a long time. But if you think about some of the fastest growing communities with a lot of buzz, that machine is going. You're thinking like Traverse City is a household name in the state of Michigan. They could pull the plug on all of their economic development marketing efforts right now, and that would still keep churning because it's in people's brains and they hear about it all of the time. The momentum is there. And so this part is exciting in a way, because we're essentially laying the groundwork to reap the benefits of that momentum later on. And Matt, something you said, the word you used, experience, I love that, because that hits so many different sections of this. I before you guys walked in, I interviewed Kristen Wenzel about My Career Quest, and big SVSU career exploration event, 5,000 kids. And what I love about what they're doing is that it's more than just kids walking up to a booth and somebody's shaking their hands and saying, "Hey, I'm Frank and I'm a semi-truck driver and here's my day-to-day. Do you have any questions?" They actually get to go up into a semi-truck, or they get to inflate a pig's lung to see it. Like in healthcare, they get to experience little facets of these careers, and that to me is so intriguing, because there's an emotional component there. There's something fun or interesting or intriguing or cool or something new, and that to me just really speaks to the importance of connecting with people's humanity. Is why do we stay in a place? It's because we feel some kind of way about it. Yes, there are jobs there, and that is a necessity, but before that, there has to be some kind of emotional pull. This is where my family is. This is where I feel potential. This is where my business can succeed. This is where I feel proud. And I love that idea of experience, because it also translates to the marketing that we do. how do we tell people or communicate our value is by allowing them to experience this area in some kind of way, be it through a story of somebody that they know or they think they know, but now they see them in a different way. They get to experience.
Can I tell you an experience? My wife and I, we went to visit Dine on the Diamond at the Loons, and they set up these tables on the infield. And they interviewed, and I can't remember her name. She was vice president of player development. And she flew around finding players. And some of these players that the Los Angeles Dodgers pick up, and which Loons is a minor league team for Los Angeles, they have 4 minor league teams that they draw from. 2 in Oklahoma, 1 in Michigan, and then 1 in California. And she picks up players from Dominican Republic. Sometimes they're 16 years old and sometimes they're 18. And they bring them into these different franchises, these different clubs. This region, this Midland club, this Loons club, is her favorite. She said she loves coming here. And it's not the mountains. It's not the, their landscape. It's not the geography. It's the people. She said, when I bring players here, they come in, they stay with host families, and I'm not just growing their talent. I'm growing them as people, as men, and that they're learning something here, a region, community, where these players are learning how to grow up, how to be polite, how to be people, how to be good people. And that's what I found here is that when you talk to anybody, they're here because the people that they know are good people. The families that they raise are good people. And you go somewhere else and you don't know your neighbors. You don't walk across the street. You don't talk across the fence. It's just different here.
Yeah.
And Phil, I really want to bring up one point that I think is important because we often talk about the problem, right? We talk about here's what we want to do and here's the issue we see and here's where we're going to fix it. You talked about how we're just starting to work on a lot of things, right? I actually want to challenge the thinking a little bit. And I want people to actually realize where things stand today, because I actually think we're at like phase 3 or 4 and not at phase 1. And here's where I'll go. And it's taking back that vision of the last 25 years. In terms of when you have to start work like this, and there are communities that are in this spot where they don't have these things, I just want to stop for a second and take inventory and say, so where do we live right now? Like, how do things look? And I want you to just take a deep breath with me and hear me out for a second in terms of, number one, we have rebuilt our downtown, and now we have an uptown. And the placemaking that's happened here, specifically in Bay City and across the region for that matter, is tremendous. This weekend, there were people watching Rick Springfield at Winona Park, and there was a massive crowd. I personally was in Mount Pleasant watching James Taylor, and there was a massive crowd. I was eating at the Ruth's Chris Steakhouse here in the region, right? I want you to just stop and go, just take a look and go, we have thriving downtowns in all of our communities. We have access to robust higher education that can help put workers in place in our companies and the snap of a finger. We're home to a Fortune 100 company, and we're home to incredible manufacturing. I say this all the time, and people need to take this seriously. We are home to world-class healthcare. We're home to systems like McLaren, Covenant, Ascension, Michigan. We have a medical school here, and there's only about 150 in the entire country. Our cost of living, the ability to commute, that miles equal minutes, accessibility to fresh water, the fact that we're located directly between two of the great things in the state of Michigan and Metro Detroit, that northwest area from Traverse City up to Mackinac Island, and we're smack dab in the middle. We can get to both areas in about 2 hours. We can go watch Division I sports in this community. We can watch Division II sports in this community. We can go watch amazing shows at Midland Center for the Arts, right? I was there watching Book of Mormon earlier this year. We can see future NHL hockey players, future Major League Baseball players. And the community that I'm talking about, we haven't even started in on Frankenmuth and the Bavarian Inn and Zenders and Bronner's and water parks in Mount Pleasant. If you want to fish, if you want to hunt, if you want to hike, if you want to live in a downtown, you can do it. On the cul-de-sac, you can do it. On a golf course, you can do it. Condos, out on a farm, in the middle of the woods, on a large body of water, on a small body of water. We can do all this here I would just say we have a lot of amazing tools in place. We already have a remarkable story to tell. We have a billion things going well for us. The way I view it is we have leaders, we have collaboration, we have people that are willing to invest, we have human capital, we have everything. Now we have to capitalize on this opportunity. People for the last 20 to 30 years have made bold decisions, made bold investments, have fought hard to get us to this point where we can capitalize on an opportunity. And so when I look at that glass, whether it's half full or half empty, I'm going to tell you it's more like 2/3 of the way full. The story of this place is really good. Now imagine if we can reimagine some of our neighborhoods, rebuild our neighborhoods, get some of that pride back, raise everybody's income some so that they have the ability to invest and do those things. We're closer than folks think. And I will say, and I say this and I want people to take it the right way, it has nothing to do with me. I'll tell you that right now.
I can tell you that too.
We are standing on the shoulders of people that made amazing maneuvers over the course of the last 20 to 30 years. The Rowleys of the world that had a vision before anyone else had a vision, that were the first steps. The fact that the Shaheens could come out of Saginaw and turn to companies in Midland and go to property in Bay City and build uptown and a development that continues to amaze us every single day. And for me, that's a massive deal because I grew up here for 18 years and they were embarrassing abandoned buildings on a riverfront that didn't make us look good. It didn't bring about pride. So for the kids who grow up here today, they have no idea what they're seeing versus the way it used to be. I just want to say, hey, we can talk about the challenges, and there's a lot of things we still need to do, no question. I think the train's down the station. I think it's moving down the tracks. I think it's picking up speed. It's our job for us to take this thing to full throttle and get it to where it needs to go.
Shovel more coal in that engine, baby.
More heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and you want to hear a crazy idea?
Yes, please.
What if Bay City found a sister city in Ontario? That at this summit, you saw the Canadian Consulate General do the keynote. Ontario signed a memorandum of understanding with Michigan. What that means to the state of Michigan, Canada, their number one trading partner, number one. But Ontario wants to sign a sub MOU with this region in terms of agriculture, and they want to make that signing here. We've got the Memorial Cup coming up, Matt.
Yep. Next May.
And it's going to be huge 10 days. It's going to be millions of dollars, including here in Bay City. Hotels are going to be filled. You're not going to believe this, what this is going to mean to Bay City's downtown, this Memorial Cup in Saginaw. And but the after effects of that investment into this cup, the Canadians are going to be looking at us. We're looking at growing our MBS airport, and including airlines like Canada Air. These are big ideas that we are going to become part of the world economy here in this region with everything that we're doing. And so this is the time for us to really start thinking big by attracting young people.
I love both of these points. Matt, to your point, the building blocks are here. We're doing so many great things. Now it's throwing coal on that fire and saying, how do we ignite this thing? How do we push it even faster? And Ken, you also pointing out like the moment of opportunity Bay County is in, the region is in right now, the boulder is moving up the mountain and we just got to push it, and we can really seize a momentous opportunity with so many things happening. And so it takes guys like you and the Alliance and parents and Hey Bay City and employers and employees and everybody really saying, hey, this is an opportunity. This is a moment in time that if we all work together, if we all push a little bit harder, if we all communicate positively about where we live, if we all experience these things, if we invite people in, if we dig our roots down a little bit deeper, we can really build this Bay County and regional community from what we are now, which is an amazing community, into an amazing community that is checking all of these boxes that we want, and all of these opportunities for so many more different kinds of people. And it is such an exciting time. I'm sure that you guys feel the same way, that being part a little gear in this cog of work, and how do we really make this thing happen. It's exciting. It's a lot of hard work. But at the same time, it's exciting work, because you guys know so many people within the region. And like you said, our humans are our greatest asset. And that just fills me with so much hope that the conversation around attraction retention has shifted from purely numbers and just economic development to that first step of how do we embrace and uplift our humans? How do we give them what they're looking for and what they feel like they need?
Man, you got some pretty good humans here.
Yes, the best of humans.
And Phil, here's a part that we love about our job, and that we really want to make sure that people always remember. Hey, we're here with Hey Bay City. Love Hey Bay City. Like I said, Bay City native, love it. I'm as active as I can be, but we are only as strong as our neighbors in the community, and we're as weak as our neighbors in the community. So if you think that something great that's going on in Midland or Saginaw Mount Pleasant isn't our celebration, you're wrong. It is, because these are going to be jobs for us, a better quality of life for us, another place where our folks can work and go. The headlights move in every direction in this region every morning. People work and travel across M20, US 10, I-75, and every road in between. Our region is so tied to one another, and also our weaknesses. So if you think that something bad is going on in the city next door and that's their problem, you are wrong. That impacts your community as well. We're separated by about 45 minutes total, and most of the time between 10 to 15 minutes to get to the next county line. We will all rise together, or we will all fall together. And that's a part we love about our jobs. I can talk about Bay City and our community and things here all day long, but we get to do that with Saginaw, with Midland, with Isabella, 4 counties that are interconnected, that really either thrive or die together. And so for us, that's very special. And one thing that we hope in the work that we do that's different than everybody else is that we are regional, and that we are getting people that oftentimes don't know each other, haven't worked together. There's simple things. And Pete Shaheen has been a genius on this from day one, and he continues to be. Too often, you may have something in Bay County, right? And you need a good or a service, and you go get it outside of the region. But it was available in Saginaw, Midland, and Isabella. And if we could just get ourselves to support one another, if we could stop looking outside other areas in the outstate or in the Midwest or in the country, and actually work to supply ourselves with our own talent from these 4 counties, it's amazing how much more business we can do. You don't need the accountant in Lansing. There's an accountant here in the county next door. You don't need the lawyer from Detroit. There are great lawyers here. Your mom's sick. She doesn't have to go to the specialist down in Metro Detroit. Go to the county next door. They have that specialist. If we can learn to work together and understand the assets that are right here at our disposal in the region, and we just support each other, we will lift each other up even so much more. But that is something that we need to do a better job of. And we got to tell that story that, hey, the community next door isn't your neighbor. The community next door is you. This is your community. You're part of something larger than you realize. Support one another, and we're all going to win.
I love that. I love that. We are all going to win. I'm so excited to watch you guys work as this effort continues on in the future. I'm so excited to see all of our communities grow and develop and really evolve into something unexpected, almost, just to see the changes happening. It's really hard to acknowledge them when they're right in front of your face. But like Matt, when you were saying, when you moved back, the change is just immense, because you have this little break and you can see it with fresh eyes. And so to see our communities evolve over time is just going to be so exciting. I want to thank you guys for stopping by today. I want to blessings and thank you for all of the work that you're doing on behalf of all of our communities. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Phil. I appreciate the time to help tell the story and spread the word further.
Thanks, Phil.
Cut.